yesterday we were talking about labor unions, how they came to be, and also why they're still needed today. So I want to kind of take you through the rest of the notes for today. All right, so we started at the end of the period yesterday. We talked about wages, benefits, working conditions, and job security. So let's talk about union activities. The refusal to work until certain demands are met. This is a strike. When the workers initiate this is a strike. What they're trying to do is they're trying to get something out into the headlines or the news, and this is like the last straw. You don't want to go on strike because a lot of times if you go on strike, you're losing pay depending on what industry you work in, and if your union doesn't have the resources to make good on your paycheck, then this could be problematic for you. Something that's done before a strike would be picketing, and that is oftentimes when you see you're walking down the street or you're driving down the street and you see people walking with signs back and forth. This happened a couple summers ago on the Vessel Parkway with Verizon and its workers, and basically they're just trying to get publicity for the problem, but they haven't gone on strike. Now, we talked about people's aversion to wanting to go to Walmart, and Walmart is the #1 boycotted company because a lot of people don't like their practices with human resources, with their workers. They're trying to keep the unions out. A great percentage of their workers are on government assistance because they are not making enough for the wages. They keep people at below full-time employees because then they don't have to pay them as much and they don't have to pay them as much benefits. All right. For negotiations with management over employment issues, this is collective bargaining. And what I need you to do is you need to pause this video after you get done watching this, open up a new tab, go into Edpuzzle, and watch the collective bargaining Edpuzzle, and then that's going to explain collective bargaining. So go ahead now, pause this video, open up a new tab, go into Edpuzzle, watch the collective bargaining, and then come back to this video. All right, welcome back. So we're talking, hopefully you learned a little bit about collective bargaining and why it is so powerful, the fact that you have a couple people negotiating on behalf of everybody. There are strength in numbers, and it is something, for example, that the teachers use, because it would not make any sense for every single one of us to go down and negotiate our contract with Mr. Van Fossen. So I'm very thankful, and so we are all very thankful for the couple people that go down to his office and they negotiate with the district negotiators and with the attorneys to make sure that our contract is legal and that it is fair. So for an example, I don't have to worry about that my salary is going to be different than Mr. Moraski's or Mr. Hughes because they play golf with Mr. Van Fossen. So it also ensures some equity. All right, so there's two things that the employer can do if, like for an example, we had a strike. For an example, the workers would initiate a strike. That's from the workers' end, but from the employer's end, this is going to be from the employer's end. This is the refusal to let the employees work until management demands were met, and this is a lockout. If you pay attention to sporting events at all, we've had several lockouts. And basically, it's literally they're locking the players out. They won't let them in. And it's a way for them to get their word across about the fact that they're not happy with the state of negotiations as well. All right, so something else is arbitration. So you don't want to go to arbitration because arbitration means that you haven't been able to reach an agreement. And if you can't reach an agreement, there's two things that you could happen. The first one is you could go to something called mediation. And if you go to mediation, then it's not legally binding. So you go to a third party, and if you don't like what the third party has to say, then you are not bound to it. You can walk away from it. So let's say, for an example, that a player is working with his agent to get a new contract, and he has told the team that he can't, possibly feed his family on less than $30 million a year. And he was injured last year. He hasn't had all that great statistics, but he shows promise, and he knows he can do it. And so he and his agent go to the team, and the team's in a small market like Buffalo, and they don't have the $30 million to pay him per year. Plus, he wants a guaranteed contract. So they go to a third neutral party, and we state our case, they state our case, they come up with an answer, and if neither one of us likes it or one of us doesn't like it, we can walk away from it. But if you go to binding arbitration, that means that you have to take whatever that third party agrees to, and typically one side is not happy. So if you went to binding arbitration, that means that whatever the person comes up with, you're stuck with it no matter whether it's what you wanted or not. You can't walk away from it. So there are different categories of labor and wages, and it all has to do basically on the level of education, which I'm going to talk to you about in a minute. So the first one are unskilled workers. And these unskilled workers are primarily working with their hands. No training or skills are required. For example, digging ditches, mopping floors, washing dishes, things like that. The next level is semi-skilled. And this is enough mechanical skills to operate machines with little training. This is running an actual dishwasher versus washing the dishes by hand. Lawn care, that type of a thing. The next one is going to be skilled workers. And these are people that can operate complex equipment with little supervision, carpenters, computer technicians, programs, things like that. And then the last category of worker is a professional worker. And these are people that have more education. It's the highest level of knowledge, base education and managerial skills, doctors, lawyers, corporate executives, that type of a thing. Now, I do want to talk to you about the fact that education is going to make a difference in your skill level. So let me show you a couple things. First of all, let's look at this. This is not in your notes, but you're going to have a question about it in a minute. The typical bachelor's degree recipient can expect to earn about 2/3 more than a high school graduate over 40 years working life. This chart shows expected earnings relative to those of a high school graduate. So let's look at the high school graduate is this right here. So if you have a bachelor's degree, which is typically a 4-year degree, you're going to earn 0.65% more over a lifetime than the high school diploma. If you have a master's degree, you're almost going to earn twice what a person with a high school diploma is. And obviously, as you can see with your more degrees that you have, the higher your earning potential is. Now, is this 100% of the time? No, but it is most of the time. So the higher amount of human capital you have, the higher paid job you're going to have. Now, let's look at another chart here. All right. So if we were to look at high school diploma being this right here, okay, and these are dollars over here. This is typically an average, a yearly salary. So if we look at this, and that's probably, I don't know, call it $36,000 a year, which sounds like a lot of money. It is, but after taxes and all of the expenses you have, $36,000 is really not as much money as you think it is. Go up to a bachelor's degree, and you're almost at $70,000. If you go up to a master's degree, it's almost $80,000. Now, this is not across the board. This is average. For an example, I have a master's degree, but I don't make $80,000 yet. This is also different than the business world. In the business world, you are going to make more money than in the education world. But obviously, as you can see, the more education you have, the higher earning potential you have. And this is going to pay off in the long run because you're better able to save for retirement. If you're putting money into a 401k or a 403b, or if you're putting it into the stock market, whatever it is that you're doing, you are better able to afford those things, and as well as the day-to-day purchases. And remember, we've talked about this. The only person that can be responsible for you having money when you're retired is you. So you want to make sure you're making that happen. Okay. So one big difference in skill level and income potential. Why don't you go ahead and write an answer down for that, and then I'll come back to the video. All right, so if you wrote down, I think the one big difference in skill level and income potential is education. That would be the right answer because, and even if it's not like necessarily a college degree, like if you're going to BOCES and you're getting extra training every time, and you're keeping your certifications updated, that's education, and that's going to help your skill level. So let's talk about the wage. And your wages are the amount your employer pays you to work for them. So when I get my paycheck tomorrow, for an example, those are my wages. All right, I earn those based on the fact that I have a salaried position, which means that I get paid the same amount no matter how many hours I work. Now, it's different for us because we have extra responsibilities, like I can take on mock trial, for example, or the class of 2016 advisorship. That's different stipended money, but the salary that I earn for the number of hours that I'm here is the same, whether I'm out sick all week or I actually worked all week. The opposite of that is going to be your hourly employee. And this is typically somebody that has to punch in and out, and they get overtime. They get maybe working on a holiday pay, that type of a thing. So I want you to, in a second, pause the video and write down an advantage and a disadvantage for both hourly and salaried employees. So go ahead and pause it and do that. All right, welcome back. So maybe an advantage of hourly employee is that you get actually paid for every single hour that you work, right? Versus a salaried, I don't get paid for every single hour that I work, but that's a choice that I make. Disadvantage for hourly, like if there's a snowstorm and you're working at the mall and the mall's closed, you don't get paid for that. Okay. And then maybe a disadvantage, that would be a disadvantage of not getting paid for all hours. But then an advantage is, same scenario, there's a snow day, I still get paid for that day. All right, so the wage rate is the standard amount of pay that is given for work performed. So, for example, minimum wage, that's a wage rate. In our industry with teaching, it's usually based on the number of degrees that you have and the number of years that you have been in that job. And then lastly is equilibrium wage. And this is the wage at which the number of workers needed equals the number of workers available. So, for an example, if there is a shortage of workers, they're probably going to offer a higher wage because they don't have enough people to meet that need, and this is an incentive to come and work. Now, if there's a surplus of workers, then that's probably going to drive the wage rates down. All right, so hopefully you were able to answer the multiple choice questions that we go throughout this, and make sure you're looking up at the Smartboard to figure out what else it is you have to do this period. And please make sure that you are on task and being helpful to the sub. Thank you, and I will see you tomorrow.